Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Jesus Freaks Journal, once again in my car. I don't know why I love filming stuff in my car, but it's also very rainy today, so it feels very cozy. The leaves are slowly turning yellow, which I am not quite ready for fall. Winter's right around the corner. We're not going to talk about that right now. What we are going to talk about today is lies, which can be very, I don't know if arbitrary is the right word, but it can be very overall encompassing. It can literally be about anything, because we live in a world where we are literally surrounded by lies all the time, whether it's on social media, the people at our workplace, just people interacting with us, seeing stuff on the news. Literally, we're surrounded by lies all the time, cannot escape it. It's just a fact of living on this earth. And a lot of the time, it's hard to even figure out what the truth is when you are so surrounded by lies that your brain just gets scrambled and you're like, I don't even know what to believe anymore. I'm getting pulled in all these different directions. Maybe this thing is actually true. And that's when we fall, susceptible to those lies, just whatever that we're surrounded by. So I guess the next logical thing would be okay, well, where do lies come from? Not a little white lie that somebody tells you, or a friend is gossiping to you about something. Overall, we know that lies are from the enemy, and our enemy is always telling us lies, and his name is the devil, Satan, Lucifer, what you will. And we know that he is our enemy because Ephesians 6 says that, "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in the dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places." And then in John 8, Jesus is talking, and he's talking about the devil, and he says, "He was a murderer from the beginning. He has always hated the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, it is consistent with his character, for he is a liar and the father of lies." So we know that lies and manipulation is the devil's, one of his main ways of attacking anybody. And it's just like in the Garden of Eden, and the first time that we hear about the devil, which is in Genesis 3, when Adam and Eve are in the garden and God has told them, you can eat of the fruit of any tree in this garden except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Just that one tree. Don't touch that one. Don't eat the fruit off of that one. And so then when Satan comes to tempt Eve, he uses that tree, and right off the bat, we see his number one tactic, which is telling lies. And he's telling her oh, did God really say you would die if you ate the fruit from this tree? Did he really say that? You're not gonna die. God doesn't want you to eat the fruit from that tree because he knows that you're gonna be like God. So no, you can totally eat the tree. You're not gonna die. The first thing that he does is sow doubt in her mind, and is telling her lies that are making her doubt God, doubt what God has said, doubt just everything about all that she's known of life so far. So we can see that he's been lying and deceiving right from the start. And in 1 Peter 5, it says, "Stay alert, watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour." So we know that this is the devil's main method of attack, is telling lies. So why does he do that? Why is that his most effective tactic in everything? It's because if he tells us a lie, he can distract us from what God has said, from the truth that God has spoken, because we know that God cannot lie and God always speaks the truth. So if the devil can get you to doubt God and to get away from him, that's all that he wants. All he wants is you to turn away from God, no matter what it is. As long as your focus and belief is not on God, then the devil's won. He's done a job well done in his eyes. And the more that we are consumed by lies, and the more space that fills up in our minds and our hearts and all of our lives, the less room there is for God and for his truth. So Satan feeds us lies to steal our peace, to get us away from God. And I know that all sounds really hopeless to be okay, well, now what do I do? How can I fight back? How can we push back against the devil and his lies? Hebrews 4:12 says that the Bible is living and active, and it is sharper than any two-edged sword. And we know that it is God's holy word, and it is true and unchanging because God is unchanging. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So also in Ephesians 6, the Bible talks about how the devil uses fiery darts to attack us. And we know that he has familiar spirits, or demons, if you will, they're called familiar spirits because they are familiar with us. This is going to sound like crazy, like conspiracy thing. But so we know that he has what are called familiar spirits. And even though like we can't see them, they're around us. They're called familiar spirits because they're familiar with us. They've been around us. They know us. They know the people in the past. They know the people in our family. And they know what lies to feed us and just the right way to get just right under our skin and cut right to the bone. So that's what the Bible is talking about when it's talking about these fiery darts that familiar spirits and the devil uses. And it's just like these little, it's not like literal, like, physical darts, but it's just like the idea of being like, that's how easy it is for them to get you. It's just like a little like, oop, a little thought there, oop, a little lie there. And it just like builds up over time. The more you entertain the idea, the more you listen to the lie, and the more you just start to believe it. I know that so many of us, including myself, struggle with thoughts of how we aren't good enough, we're ugly, we're unlovable, or we're worthless. But in 2 Corinthians 10, starting in verse 3, it says, "We are human, but we don't wage war as humans do. We use God's mighty weapons, not worldly weapons, to knock down the strongholds of human reasoning and to destroy false arguments. We destroy every proud obstacle that keeps people from knowing God. We capture their rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey Christ." Later in Ephesians, it talks about the armor of God that God has given us to put on, and one of those pieces of armor to complete the whole thing is the sword of the Spirit, which is God's word. So we know that every time a lie just pops into our head, we can use the Bible, God's holy word, because it is true and unchanging. We can use that to fight against every lie that the devil tries to throw our way. You don't feel pretty? Well, God says that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You feel like you've messed up and sinned too many times? God says you are redeemed and He has forgiven you. You feel weak? God says that He makes you strong. You feel like you're unlovable? God sent His one and only Son, Jesus Christ, to die on the cross because He loves you so much and wants you to be redeemed and to spend eternity with Him. So going over to a story that just ties in perfectly with all of this. A couple of years ago, I was in a really kind of dark place mentally, to the point where I had such low self-esteem. I just felt so bad about how I looked that I had lost too much weight, and it was starting to really affect me physically, but mentally I didn't see what was wrong with me, that I was like unhealthy. I was just like, I just want to like how I look, and it just went down a really dark hole. And then during most of that time, I went through a thing where normal female functions that are supposed to happen were not happening anymore for me, if that makes any kind of sense. Try to put it gently. And I got to the point where I was like becoming more stressed about that, and I just had like this mental barrier that I was like, I don't know what it is, I don't know why this has stopped, that it's supposed to be happening monthly, I don't know why it's not happening anymore. And then the day after Christmas, in I believe 2022, I was at church, and the man who was preaching talked about having peace in your life and to reflect on what may be keeping you from having peace in your life. And I was like sitting there, and I was like, oh, well, probably the fact that this thing that's supposed to happen to my body monthly is not happening anymore. It hasn't happened for months at that point, probably like 9-10 months at that point. And then right in the middle of that sermon, God had to meet me right there and tell me, hey, enough is enough. It's because you're not eating enough food that this normal female thing is not happening anymore. You've lost too much weight. You're not eating enough food. You are unhealthy. And that's what it was. And then it was a whole thing, and I just like, that mental barrier just broke. And I was like, okay, that's what the issue is. So I started going into recovery. I started trying to eat just more food, trying to eat healthier, and I was having a really hard time just, again, mentally breaking through that thing, because it's a whole topic for another day. But it was very much like a mental issue, a mental barrier trying to get through this. And then a couple weeks later, I was driving home from work, and the song Reckless Love by Corey Asbury started playing. And I was just having like a really tough time, just trying to like get through everything. And it got to the bridge of that song. And it's when he's saying, there's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. And it's so hard to describe, but when he's saying lie you won't tear down, it was like, I always describe this as like somebody taking the volume knob and just like turning it up really loud for those couple of words and then turning it back down. I don't know, it like resonated like in me so hard, where I knew it was like God shouting at me, hey, you've been believing a lie about yourself, but I am all powerful. I have the power to tear that down, to tear down that wall. It's like, you've been believing this lie for too long. Enough is enough. I'm the breaker of chains. I'm the tear down all these walls of bondage. I can do this. You can't believe the devil's lies anymore. And that just hit me so hard when that happened, where it was like, oh, I literally am just like, I've been falling victim to this lie that the devil has been telling me. And it's not just like, the devil can feed you all sorts of lies, but it's when you start to believe it and you accept it for yourself, that's when it starts getting dangerous. Because the devil's always going to be telling lies. He's never going to let up. He's always going to be just trying all these different methods of attack, all these different little lies that just build up and up and up until eventually you don't even realize that you've been sucked into these lies in this world. And God had to tell me to be like, hey, the devil is a liar. I can tear down these lies. You just have to believe me and trust in me and go trust the process, basically. James 4:7 says to resist the devil and he will flee from you. And we know that God loves us so much that he will give us the strength to do so. And it's just like Jesus said, that you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. So if you're struggling today with a lie, Jesus gives you the weapon to fight back against it. And throughout all of that, he won't leave you or forsake you. And he will be right next to you, fighting your battle the whole time.